In this video, I'm going to cover alignment, how to go from not necessarily having the best alignment in the world, having that elbow outside the arrow line, and then instead getting into proper alignment and how to do that with a few easy steps.
You're watching the Kaminski YouTube channel.
So lately I've had a few people asking me about how to get in better alignment. Where does it come from and how do you do it? So I decided I figure I might as well just break it out into another video here and show you guys how I would suggest going from not necessarily the best alignment to being in really good alignment. A few things to watch out for, but more importantly, the steps to get into better alignment. So I've rigged up a camera overhead right now to be able to see the alignment that I'm talking about to helpfully illustrate it to you a little bit better. Excuse the mess, still in process, unfortunately, of getting everything all organized and put away in the cabinets. I want to do it once correctly the first way, and that way I don't have to adjust things down the road and, you know, well, I wish I would have arranged things or organized things or cleaned things up or whatever. I want it set right. So still in the transitionary phases, so excuse the clutter and the mess around. And you know, I'm using a ladder here to hold up the camera on a tripod so I can get this overhead view because I haven't yet mounted a camera mount on the ceiling. I'm working on that and I'll get to that along with a lot of other things to come. So like I said in the intro, I'm talking about how to go from not necessarily the best alignment in the world to a little bit better alignment, and how do you get to that positioning? How do you move, and what do you move in the correct ways to get better alignment? So first I'll show you and illustrate to you what improper alignment may be, because some people may not know. Although if you're on this video, there's probably a reason you're recognizing you're having an issue. So bad alignment would be more of this style of shooting. You'll see that I'm in more of a triangle. I don't necessarily have bones stacked at full draw. I'm kind of, you know, in a position to where I'm using a lot of arm strength to help hold the bow back, and my elbow is outside of where the arrow line would be. So from the front view, you'd see my elbow while I'm aiming at the camera, and from overhead, you'll see that my elbow is outside of the arrow line while I'm at full draw. People will often ask, well, how do I get back into better alignment? If I'm here and I'm aiming at the camera and my elbow is outside the arrow line, I can't just get into better alignment by moving my arm around and behind me, because what does that do to my anchor? You can see how it changes from being in the proper anchor, bad alignment, if the target was this direction, and then if I were to move my forearm and my elbow around, but not my head or my body or anything else, to get into better alignment, well then the hand is now so far back, how can you possibly anchor? So now if I do that with a bow, and I'm here, and I want to go into better alignment to bring the elbow further around, I can get into better alignment, but now that's not an anchor. That is not how you should be holding the bow back. So how do you get into position without doing that? Honestly, this is one of the easier fixes in regards to how to fix it, but not necessarily the easiest in order to implement into your style of shooting. So this is a little more of a complicated issue because there are a million factors that changing your alignment affects. It affects your draw length, draw weight, it affects your sight marks, it affects the way your overall feel of the body is, it affects how much you have to turn your head, it affects a lot of things. And over time, you can get into better alignment using this simple principle that I'm about to show you. But the caveat is it will take time. Not many people have the dexterity, the body awareness, the flexibility, the joint mobility, and things like that to go from not the best to the best in one step or overnight. I have done this for years and years, and I still somewhat struggle with getting into ideal, quote unquote, alignment. That could be from a million different factors, from shoulder range of motion limitations to just overall mechanics of the body, shape of the body, inflammation levels of the body, lots of different things. So don't expect to go from 0 to 100 overnight or go from not ideal to ideal in an instant, because it's just not going to happen. So I don't want to set you up for false expectations here, but I am going to show you how to just do it very simply and easily, and how you can do it at home by just doing this simple one step. And really, all that is required to go from improper alignment to proper alignment is nothing more than torso alignment. That's all it is, torso rotation rather. That's all it is, just rotating the torso more, rotating the shoulders more, and using the whole body to manipulate and pull the bow back as opposed to just the arms. So the reason behind being into proper alignment while at full draw is if I were to draw the bow back and point at you, the camera, and then you can see the overhead view here, and watch my arms and my shoulders and see how, while I'm here using a recurve style anchor under my jaw, I am in relatively a straight line from this wrist, this shoulder, to this shoulder. So you'll see as I draw back at full draw, if I draw a line from the wrist in the front to the shoulder in the back, all 3 points will want to be in a line. That would be considered alignment. That's the primary driving factor. The secondary factor to that would be the elbow on this side. Where is the tip of the elbow in relation to the arrow line? And you'll see if I draw back and I try to get into proper alignment, again with a good anchor, if I draw a line where the arrow would be, you'll see that the tip of my elbow is relatively close to being in line with that arrow. Now if I grab an arrow and put it in the bow for maximum effect so you can actually see the arrow line, watch the arrow line relationship to the tip of my elbow. And you'll see that the elbow is relatively in a straight line compared to the arrow itself. Now that is my recurve anchor. If I were to do my bare bow anchor, it'd be just the same. Even with a slightly higher anchor up on the side of my face, using my thumb on the chin, I can still get everything in a relatively straight line while at full draw. So anyway, the reason why you want to get into straight alignment is in that straight line of these 3 spots, the shoulders and the wrist, the arm, all of that in a straight line, and the elbow relatively in line with the arrow, you're looking at more of the structure of the body holding the weight back, more of the bones doing the work, less of the muscles doing the work. Because if I have a triangle formed between the wrist and the 2 shoulders, there's now energy that I'm having to exert by rotating constantly this direction, pulling back constantly that direction, to counteract the forces of the bow wanting to break the triangle in 2. So it would be akin to if I had 2 opposing forces, and if I were to push them together, if I had my fingers stacked together, it's relatively easy to control this force. Now if the force is set through a triangle, through a shape like this, and I exert the forces together, now I have to use the finger muscles to actually hold the finger straight, and it's a lot more difficult as opposed to this way. That, in a nutshell, is why you want to be in alignment. So now, how to go from the improper alignment, again, triangle, with the shoulders and the wrist, the elbow now outside of the arrow line, and not necessarily being very braced, to this. That is good alignment. That is improper alignment. Not only does my draw length change, a myriad of other factors change. Primarily, it is just, like I said already, the torso rotation, the chest rotation, the shoulder rotation. It's really nothing more difficult than this. I will set the bow down so you'll actually see what I'm doing. If I use just my hands and I have no bow, and I go to lift the bow and I go to draw back and I don't move my shoulders at all and I just move my arm, you can see how I stay in a triangle. Now if I lift the bow and I start to rotate to set myself into a straight line, but then I do nothing more than just move my hand, you'll see how I have bad alignment still. That elbow kicks out and it goes outside the arrow line. But now, as I lift the bow, I can start to set the rotation, but then as I go to actually draw the bow back, I lead with my shoulder, and now I rotate more as I'm drawing back. You'll see how my shoulders are in a line, and now my elbow is in a line with the arrow as well. So it's nothing more than simply as you're lifting and reaching for the target and rotating to get into alignment, you continue that rotation and rotate the torso. So I can do that this way with drawing the bow back like this with my hands and show you how to get into alignment, or I can do it without lifting my arms and just twist the torso. So if I have no arm engagement, no arm as in reference to how I'm pulling the bow back, this is how I pull the bow back. You'll see that as I rotate, the shoulders rotate, the head maintains its position, and I'm looking at the target. So technically I'm turning my head to the left as I'm rotating my shoulders to the right relative to my head. So again, adding the shoulders and the arms back into it, you'll see how the shoulders do nothing more than I rotate as I'm drawing the bow back to get into alignment. This is all I'm doing. It all comes from the core, comes from the chest rotating down and around like this, comes from the shoulders rotating around the axis point of the spine. All of those things all add up to how to go from improper to proper alignment. If I demonstrate that with a bow, how to properly get into alignment, that would be lifting, starting to rotate, lead with the shoulder, draw with the shoulder, come into alignment and lock it in place. That's it. I'm rotating and drawing and hinging around the spine as I'm pulling back in more of a rotational fashion. This, lifting the bow, you can set the shoulders but then only draw with the hand. You can see how the elbow flares out sometimes. Or I can lead with the shoulder and now I'm into proper alignment. So instead of more arm, more back. That's really what it comes down to, is leading with the back side of your body to try to get that extra little turn around to get that alignment better. Now, I mentioned a few different things as to what this changes. This definitely changes your draw length. I don't know if you saw before, but if I were to use the arrow, improper alignment, proper alignment. Yeah, you can see that overhead, improper alignment to proper alignment. You'll see that the arrow comes back a considerable amount. My draw length changes, it gets longer. This is not an absolute, because some people can have some pretty extreme body positions, and the way that they get into the position they're at full draw, they'll do some fairly radical things. So I won't make the absolute statement that you'll gain draw length for sure when going from poor alignment to better alignment, but generally that's what will happen. Because the draw length increases, so must your draw weight if you're shooting recurve. If you're shooting compound, you got to change your draw stops or cams, whatnot, to get into longer draw length. But with a single string bow, you just pull it back further. When you pull it back further, it gets heavier. So as it gets heavier, you may change the spine of your arrow that's required. You may change the tune of your bow, of course. Things like that. The overall positioning will not feel the same. I guarantee you will not feel the same in the bow side at full draw, and you will definitely not feel the same on the draw side at full draw. The head position is further turned relative to the shoulders, and a million things change. Overall, you're not gonna, in my opinion, expect to just go from 0 to 100 instantly. Not only are they dealing with range of motion issues and just overall mobility issues, especially within the shoulders and within the rib cage and everything like that, to be able to do this kind of rotation, you're also dealing with bad habits or habits that you have formed in the past. So you're gonna have potentially even decades worth of shooting thousands upon thousands of arrows, drawing back with just the arm, having that elbow being kicked out of alignment, and then having to switch that whole thing over and erase that old feel that you've been having. It will be an uphill battle, and it will not happen overnight. But being able to be aware as to how to fix the issue is one of the most important things. Being able to understand how to do it, not just what's wrong, is the key to fixing the problem. So if you do try to lead with the shoulder and rotate more in that torso, try to draw more with the whole body. As I'm drawing back, I'm pulling back honestly more down here, rotating through the rib cage than I am with my arms and anything, because I'm really trying to over exaggerate this rotation to get into more of an ideal alignment, so I can hold the bow back with less overall effort, less expelled energy. I can have more energy later on in the day and potentially perform better later in the day when the shots actually matter at the tournament. I really hope this video helped. If you have anything to add, just comment below. I really want this channel to be a good resource to all sorts of styles of shooting and all sorts of different skill levels. So if you're finding, hey, this is actually how it went for me, this is how I got into a better alignment, or this is how long it took me, comment below, because some people will definitely need some words of encouragement, as this is definitely not the easiest thing in the world to change. It is an easy thing to fix by saying rotate with the torso more, but implementing that is a whole other story.